Wow, that was a crazy party last night, wasn't it? Had a lot of fun. We got into some crazy stuff, didn't we? Yeah. And so something to know about VR gaming, like sure, it may seem like it existed for maybe like, what, 10 years at this point? No, it actually existed a lot longer than 10 years ago.
And so to understand VR gaming fully, we have to go back to the beginning. That's a bit too far. Well, the whole beginning of virtual reality technology started in the 1950s, with a whole movie theater being dedicated to VR technology. I feel like this would be more closer to what a 4D movie theater would be, splashing water in your face, being able to hear all around, but the technology never really went anywhere outside of that until the 1970s, where NASA made a virtual map to explore that works very similar to how Google Street View works, being able to travel in the summer or wintertime in wireframe view, which if you don't know what that is, this is what a wireframe view looks like.
What?
But in 1985, NASA would make what I would consider a modern VR headset. That's what I would expect. They even made a full bodysuit in 1989. Whoa, seriously? Well, either two things would happen if I were to put this on. I feel like I'd be transported inside an arcade machine, or I would magically start singing When Worlds Collide with a caveman, but it wouldn't be until 1991 where we got our first taste of being able to play VR games in our household. Wait a minute, scratch that. That wouldn't be until 1994. Well, Nintendo was the one to answer.
Yeah, they answered the wrong phone.
It's something. Calling the Virtual Boy a VR is a stretch. You have to be seated at a table at all times with this, looking into just a red display with nothing but an awkward controller at your hands. This thing is a headache waiting to happen. And this game didn't have a whole lot of releases for it either, and this pretty much died off a year later. After that, VR technology was kind of dormant until the 2010s, and this is where we are now. Alright, so the history's out of the way. Now let's talk about actual VR games now, and the headsets. Now one thing to know about VR is that VR games will immerse yourself further than what any first-person shooter game can ever do. I mean, like, you're actually there in the game.
Ow!
You can pick up objects, interact with the characters in the game, be in the world of the game itself. And you thought the latest console was beyond imagination? Well, guess what? VR takes that to another mile.
Whoa, it's like I'm actually there!
VR gaming is super cool. I mean, come on, you actually become the controller. Very similar situation to the Xbox 360 Kinect. And if I learned anything from the Xbox 360 Kinect...
Whoa! Whoa! Kill it! Kill it!
Now, you don't necessarily sit down the entire time holding a traditional controller. No, you are the controller. Yes, that's right. Your arms and head becomes the controller. What?
Dive!
Now, of course, I can't really show my experiences with all of the VR headsets. I only have the PlayStation VR first model and the Oculus Quest 2. But I can pretty much give you a good understanding how it feels without you actually having to wear one. And now for the PlayStation VR. The PlayStation VR is probably, in my opinion, the best route to go for beginners if you already have a PlayStation 4. I'm sure you could probably find this headset for very cheap along with a pre-owned PS4 online. And there are some downsides to ordering a VR headset from online. There are the possibilities of you catching an eye infection on it. There is the possibility of the screen itself being broken and the seller not telling you. Why would they do that? The PlayStation VR tracks your position by the PlayStation camera that originally came out when the PS4 launched, and that uses light bars on the PlayStation VR headset and the controller you're using. The technology is okay, it works great for me. There's not a whole lot of issues with it. What annoys me is just that I can't really reach down to grab something off the floor in the game because I would go out the side of the camera. That annoys me. The tracking accuracy is actually pretty good on this, but it does use light bars though, so there is a chance that the collar might bleed onto your shirt and the camera might not track it properly. But the PlayStation VR has to be attached to a cord, but luckily it's a long cord so you don't have to really worry about any issues there. But there is something very, very cool about the PlayStation VR that might seem a little bit redundant. One of the biggest things I think is really cool is that you don't have to play VR games on this headset. You could play just normal PlayStation 4 games on this headset and it'll work just fine. It basically gives you a big movie theater size screen inside the headset, instead showing you a VR game. What it does, it just gives you a big movie theater size screen inside the headset that you can resize to any size you want and play every game you can think of on that VR headset. So now let's move on to the Oculus Quest 2. Oh boy, this VR headset has got to be one of the best I've ever tried. This VR headset tracks everything so well. It still tracks everything around you with cameras, but it's a little bit different than the PlayStation VR. Instead of tracking lights to know where you're at, there's actually cameras on board on the headset to track where the headset is and the controllers are. And this works really well. You never have to worry about reaching out of bounds with this VR headset. You never have to worry about if you're in the right spot or not for the camera to see you. You could just literally lay down on the floor and it still works fine. I am shocked on how good this is. And there are a bunch of games made for this VR headset, so you have limitless entertainment. The PSVR 1 isn't supported anymore. That's a bummer. But the Oculus Quest 2 is still being supported, and there's a lot of games being made for it. And guess what?
Now, I hear your questions. You're saying something along the lines of, this VR headset is only for games and stuff like that only. There's no way I can use this for something cool outside of VR gaming. Well, guess what? I'm watching the SpongeBob movie right now on this, and guess what? I'm having a blast.
Under the hood, all this is just an Android tablet. So you can put any Android game or app on here and you can watch a movie, play a game. The options are limitless with the Oculus Quest. So let's take a look at some of the games for virtual reality headsets. I mean, some of them are quite interesting and some of them are I mean, no matter where you look, there are so many options for games in VR. And the game I would definitely go with when playing VR 90% of the time would be Beat Saber. It's super easy to understand but hard to master. I feel like this one wouldn't cause motion sickness, and some of the songs on here I kinda like a little bit. This game is a music rhythm game that you have to use lightsabers in order to control the game. And this is actually quite fun. Sure, the base song selection is pretty okay, but this game I would get tired of within the first like 10 minutes or so. And if you want more songs added to this game, the developers would have to do it, and it's not always guaranteed that a song you would like would be added into the game. And if there was some way I didn't have to rely on the developers of the game to get songs I like, then I would eat my own words. Yep, I'm not joking. You can even put custom songs on the game as well that aren't supported officially, so now you can always say too much is never enough. This game I really love for the replayability. I mean, sure, there's not really to say a whole lot about it. Like, it's a music rhythm game, but you're in VR. That's all there really is. But there's a lot of replayability with this game. Now, I do have to warn you though, these songs are not easy at all. Maybe some of them are, but most of them are for the most extreme hardcore of Beat Saber players. They require precision and skill to be able to get through these, and yet I can't get through a single one. Don't worry, I keep track. Now let's shift gears a little bit and go to Batman Arkham VR. I am a fan of the Batman Arkham series, and I was super excited to hear that Batman Arkham VR was getting released. So no matter what the cost, I'm sure the game is really, really good, right?
Sure?
This seems more like a tech demo than a game. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with the game. The game is actually quite good, but
it's something.
It's got elements from the series, you take control of Batman, it's even got a plot twist in it. Whoa, really? But this game is kind of short. I would have liked to see what this game could do as a full retail game, but I feel like this is just like a demo or a tech demo, really. You get the basic Batman experience with this game. You can even use some of his gadgets, which is really cool, but that's it. But please tell me Minecraft in VR has more than Batman. Minecraft for the PlayStation 4. Oops. So Minecraft for PlayStation 4 got an update in 2020 to add support for the PlayStation VR. And I gotta say, it's okay. I mean, this is basically Minecraft just in a VR headset. You're not really going to get the immersive experience that you get with the Oculus Quest mod or anything that PC has, but it is still a good alternative though. You actually get to take control of the character himself. Of course, you still have to use a PlayStation 4 controller. You can't use a PS Move controllers, unfortunately, but I'm not going to complain too much because this is a good, easy way to play Minecraft in VR. So even though I really wanted to touch up on official VR games, this works so well, and it is just pretty awesome seeing the game like this. What this does is turns Minecraft PC Edition into a VR game, and they implemented all of the VR functionality so well into the game. I mean, sure, Minecraft was fun. How about scaring my pants off now?
Nope. Nope, not in a million years. I'm not doing that.
This is definitely a weird one. So Resident Evil actually has a few games supported in VR, not just one, but two. Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 both have VR support, and I don't know about this one. I mean, for the longest time, I wouldn't play horror games because I just didn't like playing them. I got scared every single time. I mean, that's the point of them. But as more and more time went on, I actually got used to the horror games, and I actually started playing them, and I gotta say, the VR support in Resident Evil 7 is weird. I can't talk about Resident Evil 8 because that only supports the PlayStation VR 2 on PlayStation 5. I don't have that. But somehow I wound it up with Resident Evil 7 in the PSVR 1, so why not talk about that one instead? And it's kind of just like Minecraft in VR. It just puts you in the game. There's really not a whole lot changed. I mean, there's no restrictions to it. You can play the entire game like this, but to be honest, it just feels a little bit weird. Okay, so how about something a little bit less scary? So the Gran Turismo series is actually my favorite series to play if I'm talking about a racing game. But when I heard that Gran Turismo was getting an update to get VR support, I was excited. I am excited! Time to dust off the old steering wheel because this, I feel like, is the way that you need to get immersed. No controller is going to do that for you, no matter if it's the PS4 controller or the PlayStation Move controller. What you need is a steering wheel setup for this game, and it works quite well. Really, the only issue I see in this game is that you can't race against a full team of cars, you just only go on a one-on-one race, that's all. And since we're already talking about racing games, let's go ahead and talk about the other racing game, Assetto Corsa. Assetto Corsa, I feel like if you put Gran Turismo on PC, that's it. And the last game I want to talk about is the best one, I think, aside from, of course, Beat Saber and also Gran Turismo, which is Contractors VR. This is basically the most realistic shooter I can pretty much find on a VR headset, and it really feels like putting a Call of Duty game in VR, which that's very awesome, but also at the same time, you can play literally Call of Duty maps in VR, which is even more awesome. The controls feel super fluid in this game, and every single action you do is super realistic to whatever weapon you're holding. If you have a bolt action sniper rifle, you have a bolt action sniper rifle. I mean, like, what else are you going to do? And I think that's all the VR headsets and games I can talk about. I mean, there's no way that I can own any other VR headsets, right? What? So Nintendo really doesn't disappoint when giving quality content, but one of the things that is just a bit weird is their Nintendo VR headset. This is basically just a Google Cardboard. This is Nintendo Labo VR. And after this headset release, there were a few games that got support added through an update to make use of the VR headset. And that was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm probably missing a few. And I mean, the experiences are okay. So in order to compensate for the limited hardware of the Nintendo Switch and for motion sickness prevention on the VR headset, all they did was just kind of restrict the camera from moving from a certain spot, which is weird, but still weird. And this actually works quite well for Captain Toad Treasure Tracker because you're basically locked into one spot in the camera anyways with the game itself. But any game on the Nintendo Switch that is not Captain Toad Treasure Tracker just feels extremely weird. Now that was all of the VR games that I can think of. What do I think of VR in general?
It puts you in the game. Like, how else can I explain it? That is awesome. But overall, I think it's time to give VR a break because I don't get motion sickness from that, and take a look at a different subject. Wait a minute. Where's my guitar at?